If you've experienced fandom, then you probably know of AUs, alternate universes where something in the original plot decides to go off-rail, whether intentionally, think running a coffee shop, or unintentionally, like when you write what you think is a piece of fiction abiding by canon, and then canon decides to do something that you will immediately retcon in your piece of fiction. Bringing back a dead character, making your favorite couple not break up, they don't even have to be done with pieces of media you like, you can also just do them with your own creations. I, weirdly enough, used to not be a big fan of AUs unless they leaned towards the latter example. If it fixed or did something the original work doesn't do in the same general universe, I was all for it, which doesn't make it an alternate universe necessarily, but it does make it adjacent. It's like a little alcove tucked into a corner of a bigger house, a closet, metaphor for coming out or otherwise, that you can pop your head into, instead of being like an entirely different plot of land. In a tattoo parlor, maybe? Despite my initial pickiness, AUs have been very beneficial for me to make. It helped me to break down my OCs in a way that benefited the original plot, and also they're pretty riveting to create, even with their challenges. So I'm gonna walk through my own little AUs, my thought processes, the little guys that I've made up and how I've twisted them in these universes. All the things that they've done to my brain. I am going to be real with you. To preface, the modern world is painfully agonizing to me. My preferences are to avoid reality, escapism at its finest, which is why when my friend asked for a modern AU of my characters, I originally was really stumped. The characters they requested, Amarynthia and Callum, have stories that are so deeply embedded in their SpaghettiOs fantasy world that they live in, so to come up with a modern equivalent that gets me as equally invested is a tall order. But I am dedicated to my friends, so I went to work. She did explain to me after I came up with what I did that she was really thinking this was going to be a slice of life. If you watched the OC-tober video that spawned this, you know I did not go in that direction. But what I did come up with was a pop star ex-librarian combo. Basically, Callum's the pop star, Amaranthia's the librarian. A little odd, because most of you probably don't even know these characters, but bear with me. One of my favorite parts of AUs now is how they really allow a character to be explored in facets that aren't able to be done in the original story, especially with character dynamics. In the original story, Amy is someone who is popular in the way all hyper-popular girlies are. Controversy, debates, endlessly being picked apart and put back together, and then abandoned in history. With the external pressure she has, she developed a strong sense of self as a way to survive. She has a confidence and sway that keeps her afloat. Modern Amy, in contrast to her, without the pressures of the external world, has crumbled a lot internally. Essentially, she's a bit of a girl failure. She's achieved things like working as a librarian and writing stories in her free time, but in the big city, she is flooded by people who are, by comparison, better. She has an underlying depression, while present in the original story, is handled with the kind of self-destruction in the modern world that only a human with a not-so-long lifespan can achieve nowadays, not speaking from experience. Doing things that feel like a waste of time, doom scrolling, watching self-improvement videos, and then rotting in bed, that kind of thing. Both modern and fantasy Amy rely on other people to help them regulate, but modern Amy really needs people. And this comes into play because of Callum. Callum and Amy were two people who met before he became a pop star. They were friends who gained citizenship through the military or something else, one way or another, and worked through college together with their other besties. In college, Callum really loves history and mythology like Fantasy Him does, and so Amy finds comfort in that they both studied in similar fields, are surviving together, comfortable in a slightly cramped apartment in the heart of the bustling city, a little alcove where they can visit their friends scattered across this town. But in his free time, Callum starts singing, composing music, an old hobby that, through the power powers that be in the internet and his looks made him explode in popularity. He starts getting an income from it, making deals, eventually going on tours, and it is horrifying for the both of them, but especially for Amy, because she is smaller. In the eyes of many, smaller and smaller and smaller than this person who she loves. She sees how others adore him, how they peel his life apart limb from limb, and inevitably discover that she is a part of it. Stalking photos, debates on whether she's good enough for him, peeling her down further and further. And after a serious crisis, they break up to take the heat off of her. It's like a secret dating, but not quite. You'll love to see it, you know? Yearning central. And now they both catch glimpses of each other's lives, desperate to involve themselves and attempting to, but never quite sinking in. There is no normal. Callum speaks on shows, and she sees edits of him and him in ads, and she can't stand the sight of it. I've mentioned this before, but I think it would just be like the perfect dark humor to have her feed know her so well that it just shows so many thirst traps of him. So many. It is awful for her. It's awful. Because if you know anything about fandom, oh buddy, it's bad. It gets bad. Even though this is something that she is proud of him for achieving, he, in her eyes, is someone who is better than her, and the thought of that cements in Amy's head that she really was worse than him to begin with. This is not speaking from real experiences of comparison. I have no issue with that. Anyways, it's very psychological, but I think that fan culture and idolism, drama, romance, despite these struggles in modern stories, have always been compelling to me. This AU, as you can see, lets me pick out character traits and hobbies these two have already had and mess around with them. Make something that, while not them in the original story, is definitely them if circumstances changed. It almost acts like a foil. They've swapped roles from the original story, and Amy can't handle it. The constraints of time are ever present. Her humanity is ruined, and Callum is bright. So bright that it defiles. Speaking of defilement, a completely normal segue, what if they were fish? Stuffing characters into my favorite fairy tales, poems, pieces of media, it is a religious experience like no other. For an example of this, The Little Mermaid. The Little Mermaid is one of my favorite fairy tales. It combines the grief of loving someone who will never love you back with the iridescent glimmer of fantasy creatures and promises with sea witches turning into sea foam on the sunrise after your beloved rejects you. Peak writing, actually. One of my favorite parts of the story is the deal the mermaid strikes with the sea witch, to feel every step as if she was walking on glass, to never return to the sea, to never speak, and so the witch cuts off her tongue as a price. I, in my sadistic landscape of loving tragedy, even though The Little Mermaid is more of a bittersweet end than a tragic one, decided to plaster my characters all over the story in a short comic. I find the concept of being trapped in a scenario of your own making that you have tried with all your might and it is not enough, and yet life will move on, quite compelling. This comic ended up becoming one of my all-time favorites because it looks so good. It has this flow to it, empowered by the story and its details, like the seashells and pearls that adorn Amy's body, or the way Tulsi, the witch in this story, has a way of cutting off Amy's tongue through a kiss. The way Amy is so disconnected and frustrated, her tears and blood drying off as she confronts what will be an uphill battle, washed up, surrounded by sea foam. Truly, it's so fun. I think about this AU comic on the daily. It rewired my brain. I've mentioned this before, but Tack Wither's comic Before the Wedding also inspired this because, oh god, there are their art. I love their Little Mermaid. I would die for them. It's almost like these AUs let me process experiences I have. Not that I've ever had my tongue cut off, but in the sense that I can relive what makes a story archetype or character dynamics so compelling. Especially because these things can come back around and flesh out the original characters because of it. One that stumped me for a long time was what an evil version of Callum would be. Callum is kind and sensitive. He deeply cares about knowledge and respecting the world around him. I tried to make him stereotypical flirty evil hot guy, but it just doesn't work. And so my idea of an evil Callum came in the form of an epiphany, where his cowardice, his prioritization of himself, is higher than his bravery. And that would be a Callum who is complacent in the horrors that Amy is being put through. That it just is what it is, and there is no point in thinking otherwise. It's the kind of evil that happens the most in everyone at some point. I know it because I had to grow out of it. The systems in place may be corrupted, but that does not mean you have to comply with them. Although, that is easier said than done. Thus, Callum in this universe. This realization about a core part of Callum, who is rebellious in ways you don't quite expect, I got to this realization because of an AU. Specifically, since we're talking about mermaids, I have an AU where Callum, in a town known for hunting merfolk, stumbles upon fish girl Amy and has to decide whether he devours her or doesn't. Witch hunters, where they're both hunting witches together, and Callum realizes Amy is one of them, turns her in, sees her flesh morph as she is burned on the stake. Haunting. He is haunted. You get it. It helped me inform why my version of him in the original story is the way that he is, what choices he makes and what they mean. Because if he didn't make those choices, he'd be safe from others who would look down upon him. But he wouldn't be happy. He'd still be complying. On a lighter note, because we went to some dark places. I've even stuffed them into entire franchises for fun. Haven, for example, is a game about two lovers, and if I don't make an Amy Callum doodle of them in the series, I think I'm committing a crime. I've already used Haven audio so much for them. So much. I gotta, you know? Same thing with how I mush together concepts from the movie Darlings into an entire AU, where Callum is desperately trying to figure out if he's able to get with Amy, who's just straight up a single grown mom with a fully grown daughter. Rom-com fantasy. Basically. It's a niche that I adore, etc., etc. Doing all of this, creating these little worlds, has helped me realize that AUs truly are powerful. Whether for fun or for exploration of your character's dynamics, motivations, the best or worst case scenarios, they really have a lot of merit. Getting to understand what you've made through a different lens, understanding them on a deeper level. It's like you get to say hi to a person that you know again. And, if you so wish, making AUs of your own characters can help that seed blossom for you too. Bye!